Dave Chappelle.
We'll just continue then.
Yes, we're going to continue. Dave Chappelle was doing a show, a no cell phones allowed show in Boston, and he had stuff to say about what is going on in Israel and Palestine. I ask myself continuously why celebrities feel the need to get involved in all this stuff, but it is interesting because Dave Chappelle is Muslim, and he had people actually walk out on the show because he called what Israel was doing in response to the Hamas attack a war crime. And people were not happy about that. Dave Chappelle is about as close, I think, to anti-fragile as you get in Hollywood. I don't think that's going to affect his bottom line.
To be fair.
Yes. So basically what happened was he said that students shouldn't be losing their prospective jobs because of what they said about the attack. And somebody basically told him to shut up. And
which is funny because they bought tickets to his show to hear him talk.
To hear what he has to say.
But then they told him to stop talking.
At the same time,
seems counterintuitive, but okay.
On a pretty regular basis, we kind of give celebrities crap when we say, like, why are you going off routine? Why are you a musician who's suddenly talking about politics? Comedy's a little bit different because current events can be worked into the show, right? It's not the same as like a singer who's like in the middle of their set and then suddenly decides to talk about like abortion bans or something like that. I imagine that for a comedian, it's a little bit different because you want to keep it current for things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I was at Theo Von's show in DC last night.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. And he
That's
referenced...
really awesome.
Yeah. See, I do cool things. No, he's had a bunch of show in DC's, but I just caught yesterday's and it was great. But he did, reference the war and whatever's going on, and I'm not going to try and deliver his jokes, but they were funny. And part of it is, I think, unlike a musician that has an album that they're touring with, part of comedy is responding to what's happening around you. It's the same thing to me as when they like interact with the audience.
I'm sure he kept it light too.
Yeah, it was not like the whole time we then thought about this one serious geopolitical issue. It moved on. There was sort of a touch on it, but then that's it. And I think comedians sort of get to comment on news and culture that way, in a way that I get more irritated with actors who are supposed to play other people than being like, and here are my personal opinions.
I had an issue with Chappelle with one of his like first specials where he started to be like kind of philosopher king-ish, because I was with Anna, a cousin of mine, and she's the kind of person that like laughs hysterically at stand-ups, and we usually watch them together when we're hanging out. And I remember I put Dave Chappelle's thing on, and she didn't laugh once. Oof. I was like, Anna, what's going on? She's like, he hasn't made a joke.
He's too much commentary, not enough.
Yeah.
His style of humor is different though. Like he weaves more in. It's not like it's punchline.
No, but I feel like it kind of hit me and kind of showed me, the echo chambers that I'm in.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's a joke. He's, talking about the current situation.
But that's because it reinforces what you already agree with, right? Like I think all of us tend to fall into that, right? Like one of the things that this whole situation kind of reinforced for me was like, look, I saw a lot of people that I normally agree with on a lot of stuff saying stuff that I didn't necessarily agree with. And that's kind of bracing for me to have your viewpoint challenged and then realize that you don't just see the world the same as everyone around you just because they're around you. But someone like Chappelle is someone who is like also like, it's not like it was the point of the stand-up, right? The whole point of the stand-up is a lot different when he's had time to write it all out, more time has passed, and you can actually facilitate something in some semblance of a routine if he then wants to comment about it. It's kind of like when he made the one about George Floyd, which didn't hit the same as his other stuff because he did it quicker, and it seemed like he just didn't have the time put into it than his usual ones did. But his stuff on his last Saturday Night Live bid, I thought was really, really good. Like I thought his last one on Saturday Night Live was great.
I'm truly wondering, like, what is society's pressure relief valve right now? Because everywhere you go, so
it's Taylor Swift dating this guy. I'm telling you.
Honestly, that's probably for the ladies.
But for the guys, because
UFC.
My argument, that may be the only one, because my original answer would have been, like the Xbox Live chat where you could get rowdy with the boys. But now you got an AI counting how many no-nos you have. So it's like, where do you let the scene?
Yeah. So like for something like this, like he criticized the attack, but then he called essentially what Israel did war crimes. Like, look, I have to wonder why get into like look, this is one, and we'll get into it more when we talk about the other celebrities. But for someone like David, he also, there's this weird thing where it says he denies being in Boston on the night that this happened. So I don't even know, like this has been picked up by every outlet. So what
do you mean he denies being in Boston?
So it says in the bottom of the article, it says like they reached out for comment from him, and he denies being in Boston on the night when it says this show happened, and there's no way to prove it.
And it's not like it's part of his tour, so it's not like he.
No, it was on the tour date. Like this was a date listed.
The tour date said you were in Boston, and now Dave Chappelle's like, prove it.
Yeah. So
that's a bold move.
Wait, where did it go here? I had it here. It was just really funny where it says like he denied being. Okay, yeah, right here. So. Let me put it on screen. It says, as a result of this, it divided the audience. Some cheered Free Palestine and others pushed back with questions about Hamas. Again, you're at a comedy show and everyone's just like, could you please just tell me some jokes, right? But eventually some people got straight up and left. Dave, meanwhile, supposedly ended by saying that two wrongs don't make a right. It's worth noting that Dave is Muslim, which could be playing into this. And of course, this is far from the first time he's landed in controversy. His team's denying he was there, but he was.
Okay.
What?
Here's what I think.
What?
Here's what I think happens with him and people like him. So I remember being on a past episode and talking about how marketing before the digital age was all just conjecture.
Mm-hmm.
Because
can you explain that?
So before you had hard metrics, basically
like actual data.
Yeah. It was a bunch of guys smoking cigarettes and being like, listen, it worked out. All the mothers saw it and they loved it and they bought it for their daddios. But now you can see literally
I paid the best American accent of all time.
Thank you. And then you can see I paid $500 for this ad. 100 people clicked, and of those 100 people, 10 bought it. Like you could see literally. Yeah. And then I tried this other one. I paid 500. 200 clicked and blah. You get all the data, right? And so we're at an age where celebrities know precisely how many people are following them. Out of the people that are following them, precisely how many people are interacting with them. So it's past the time where you can't do this thing like, well, I'm a comedian. It's like, well, you're not just a comedian. You're a comedian that has 50 million followers, of which blah, blah, blah.
I was actually going to ask that point because one of the things that like when I first was reading this, one of the notes that I wrote is like how much does somebody who's that size actually know? Because one of the things that I always laugh is anytime one of these movie studios does something right where they do something not completely idiotic, everyone's like, oh, they're finally listening to their audience. Not really. They got lucky. Most of the time they just get lucky, right? With the studios, they just get lucky. How much is somebody like, and with comedians, is it different, right? Like how much does somebody like Dave Chappelle know about his actual audience, and does it really matter for a comedian who wants to be subversive from time to time anyways, right? Like is he really worried? Because I feel like if you're a comedian and you start worrying about the metrics of your audience, it might affect how you do your work, which will lead to inauthentic content.
But here's the thing. If you average out all the characteristics of your audience, even then that human being doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like the perfect average person doesn't exist. It's just that so many people present a series of characteristics among different percentage ranges. But just because you have one trait doesn't mean you have the other. And so because I see people usually go with this mistake of they become, I think the term is like audience capture.
Yes.
Where they just get so
avocado.
Right. They just get lost so much in the sauce.
They have to make content like that, and then it becomes like a prison for them.
But then they see their interactions going down, and it's because they don't recognize that regardless of the fact of how many percentage of X, Y, and Z that you can have, people typically they resonate with the authenticity.
Yeah.
And
so even when they disagree with you, they can tell that they recognize authentic content.
It can be like, this is the type of person that I disagree with that I can stomach. You know what I mean?
And I can turn to them for an honest opinion. If what you're looking for is an honest opinion from someone, comedy is a little bit different. Like one of the things I love, like I've actually started to use Theo Von as kind of like Theo Von and Joe Rogan are great kind of litmus tests for like how open-minded a person is. because of the like if they're willing to follow comedy like that, they're probably not super closed-minded, because especially Theo Von's not quite this. He's huge, but he's not the size of like a Rogan as far as their follower count.
I think he's just growing so rapidly right now. He's really hitting a stride.
And you look for that. You look for the authenticity in comics. Who was the one recently? Hassan Minhaj lost out on the chance to host The Daily Show because they found out that aspects of his comedy were like made up. And I had like a weird reaction to that, where at first I was kind of like, serves him right, because he was like bullshitting about like stories about dealing with racism and stuff like this.
Okay.
But at the same, like, then after I thought about it for a while, I'm like, look, does it set a great precedent or make the country look great? No, but it is a comedy show, and a lot of times those stories can be heavily embellished, right? So maybe
heavily embellished is different than making up, like, I experienced racism, though. Like, being more dramatic in your telling of something is not the same thing as completely falsifying something, especially when you're ultimately leveraging it to gain political sympathy.
And in the end, it ended up costing him, because he lost out on the ability to do the show because there was backlash to the fact that he made stuff up. And I don't see anything wrong with people being like, look, if I can't trust you, like, because you would hope that the stories come from a place of actual life experience, because that's where your humor comes from. And if they can't trust you, you might lose the, like, then the audience is like, well, do I trust you on this one? Do I think you're bullshitting on this one? And then all while contemplating those issues, you wonder, when am I supposed to laugh? Like, am I really going to be able to laugh through all this? And for all of these stories, it just makes me wonder if, where do you go? Like, where do you go to escape from anything these days if everything has been drawn into that market? You can't go to a concert to do it these days because the musicians want to talk about this stuff too. You can't do it in all these other places. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.